MoltenMCI is a pretty widely accepted theory in the modern FNAF community. The idea that the missing children's souls are melded together and become Molten Freddy has a surprising amount of evidence to back it up. And as we've seen recently, it only continues to stack up. In my last video, I talked all about it, as well as some of the flaws with the theory, and it's safe to say that you guys really enjoyed it. So this is more of like a follow-up video where we can go more in depth and where I get to take a closer look at your theories. This is FNAF Theory Review and I'm your host, Ozone. I didn't really think I'd have to go deeper than I did in my first video because, let's be honest, half an hour is a long time to talk about a single theory. But prior to seeing all of your comments, I don't think I actually realised the true scale of this theory. Not only are there different people explaining different flaws with different explanations, but there are also entirely different variations of this theory. Take Molten DCI and Rockstar MCI for two examples. I did my research and guys, this stuff is crazy. Make sure you stick until the end of the video where we will talk all about some of these really cool variations. And speaking of variations, this is what I am drinking today. Some of G Fuel's Supreme Hydration. This is actually their newest Dragon Ball Z flavor called Kamehameha. You can tell I don't watch anime. And it is strawberry lychee flavour. Woo. All you do is you get your standard boring water and you add a scoop of G Fuel and then you give it a good shake. And it is all mixing up. And it is ready to go. That actually tastes amazing. 0 sugar, 0 calories, 0 caffeine, but a load of electrolytes and vitamins, all to help you focus and to get through your day. And of course, this isn't the only flavor out there. You've got PewDiePie's flavor, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Naruto. So why don't you give it a try today by going over to their website, gfuel.com, and using the code OzoneYT for 20% off of your order. Thank you so much to G Fuel for sponsoring this video. Something I wasn't sure whether I should include in my original video is Candy Cadet stories, because although they seem like they would be relevant with 5 things going into one, I think it's actually quite a weak piece of evidence overall. As a reminder, all 3 stories in Pizzeria Simulator are about 5 things going into one thing. But then we realised that there were only 4 endos and 4 funtime animatronics and 4 scrap animatronics, and you kind of start to wonder, like, what is this 5 going into 1 actually talking about? Some Battle Droid 5695 brings up a pretty good point that it's possible Scrap Chica from the Survival Logbook was originally intended to be part of Pizzeria Simulator, and if that was the case, we would have had 5 animatronics. But then I think at that point you need to ask yourself why Scrap Chica wasn't included in the first place. And if we're saying Molten Freddy has all of the missing children, it kind of makes sense that Scott didn't just randomly include this random Chica because there's nobody left to possess her, you know what I mean? As I said in the video, I think if there's one Candy Cadet story that fits the best, it's the one about the man with 5 orphans. The reason is because they all get killed, put into the same body, and then they come back to the place they were killed. Funnily enough, I actually found a really strange connection whilst editing, so I threw it in, which is why in the video it seems a little bit out of place. It's the fact that Candy Cadet's story ends with the creation coming back and knocking on the door. Yes, it's pretty similar to how Molten Freddy returns to the pizzeria alleyway, but also listen to one of his voice lines. Knock, knock, I'm here. He specifically says knock, knock, which can't really be a connection to anything else. My heart is pretty set on this story representing at least Molten Freddy and the missing children, but it still doesn't bypass the flaw about Molten Freddy only containing 4 of the missing children's souls. So, last time I mentioned that the number 4 actually appears quite a lot when talking about the missing children, and that's because Cassidy, as Golden Freddy, is an oddball. Something that you guys mentioned in the comments is that in the 4th closet, the amalgamation is, similarly to Molten Freddy, made up of 4 endoskeletons, yet the Golden Freddy victim is still a part of it. I don't think it's a stretch to say that something similar happened with Cassidy. It seems like she is connected to the other missing children in some way. Not only would this explain the trope of 5 going into 1, it also makes the story feel more complete and rounded, and it helps with the soul-splitting debate and also gives an explanation to Yendo. Crackles1597 had a great comment about Golden Freddy in general. He's more likely of a ghost than an actual physical body, which is why his appearance can change in the environment. So in FNAF 2, he's Withered Golden Freddy. In FNAF 1, he's like the others. And in Sister Location, he takes this form of Yendo, appearing very rarely, of course. And on the soul splitting, Charlie Hotdog 79 had the excellent point that souls can exist even without their endoskeleton's remnant. Look at the FNAF 3 bad ending, for example. So, really, looking back, I don't think there's much wrong with Follow Me's part in MoltenMCI as long as you involve Cassidy in the process. Over 4 nights, Afton takes the 4 endoskeletons, which brings all 5 missing children that later become Molten Freddy. And while that's happening, the souls, or the agony of the children, are still able to roam the halls of the haunted pizzeria, appearing as physical beings, commencing the birth of Springtrap. It actually does work pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to be watching Hyperdroid's video from about a year ago. I actually really appreciate his videos because he explains everything at a high level so that anybody can watch and understand. Sometimes online theorists just assume that viewers or readers have a wide range of base knowledge, but if you don't set up your prerequisites, it can easily lead to confusion later on, which is what I aimed to do in the last video with the whole prerequisites kind of section, just so that people could come in and not be confused about content later on, so that everybody's kind of on the same page, you know?
We need to talk about the elephant in the room before anything else. Happiest Day. How are the missing children's spirits doing anything if Happiest Day happens in FNAF 3? Well, I don't believe it happens at FNAF 3, but simply at the end of the timeline itself. Scott Cawthon said in his interview with Dorco after Ultimate Custom Night that the answer to which FNAF 3 ending happens is
very interesting. The answer is complex.
And I think that's because both happen. Think of it, the ending with their lights on signifying they're still there is because of FNAF 6, Ultimate Custom Night, etc. While the ending with their lights off signifying they're at rest is after they're freed in Happiest Day, meaning that both are canon but just at different points in time.
Ooh, Happiest Day is actually quite a good thing to bring up because absolutely it is quite confusing regarding the placement in the timeline. After all, when FNAF 3 was released, it was clearly meant to be the ending of the series. But then Pizzeria Simulator came out and it turns out Charlie hadn't been freed yet. So clearly Happiest Day happens after that, meaning the missing children should also be here at the same time. I guess it's your decision on whether Happiest Day happens after Pizzeria Simulator or after the whole security breach saga at the end of the timeline. I personally think the former is actually more satisfying. Otherwise, we're just going to keep pushing it back, you know?
Cassidy speaks through Orville Elephant in Ultimate Custom Night, saying,
"He tried to release you. He tried to release us. I will hold you here. I will keep you here, no matter how many times they burn us."
Directly telling us that Cassidy was a part of the FNAF 6 fire in some way.
Now, of course, there's a whole other debate on who the vengeful spirit in Ultimate Custom Night is, because some people say it's Andrew from the books, others say it's Cassidy. I think it could be either, honestly, but I really like the usage of this line here. I guess the fact that the vengeful spirit talks behind Orville Elephant gives the line a whole double meaning. Not only did he try to release us, as in the mediocre melodies and the others in this building, but he also tried to release us, referring to the souls within those machines themselves. If this is in fact Cassidy, which could be very possible, I think it's a huge point to MoltenMCI, but of course that is a theory based on a theory on a theory, so it's something to be taken with a grain of salt.
Funtime Freddy appears only in the darkness and tries to sneak up on you like original Freddy. Funtime Foxy twitches and must be wanded off with a flashlight like Withered Foxy. Ballora is based off audio cues like original Chica in the kitchen and with her music box in Ultimate Custom Night, while Yendo is basically Golden Freddy copy and pasted to a T.
I believe what he's saying here is that the animatronics in Sister Location seem to parallel a lot of the actions and the traits of the animatronics possessed by the missing children in earlier games. Hence, you know, they may be possessed by the same souls. While that's a nice idea, I do think this is just a coincidence. I'm not too sure why Chica and Ballora would be connected, and it doesn't really account for Bonnie or for Baby at all.
We hear from Phone Dude that they already raided the FNAF 1 location and found the original Foxy Head, etc., their shells. But if Follow Me is before FNAF 1, why did they only find their shells? We hear that the only thing Phone Dude and co find to an actual working animatronic is Springtrap. And there are no endoskeletons present in FNAF 3, so why wouldn't they find the endoskeletons of the originals instead of just their shells, if these are the Wizards and the originals get rebuilt? There would be no reason that the FNAF 1 endoskeletons would be gone entirely.
Ooh, okay, that actually resonated with me really effectively. The line that makes so much sense to me is that there's no endos in FNAF 3. You know, it's just the animatronic shells put in boxes from old locations, and the parts are even like hung on mannequins and thrown up on the wall. So why would there not be any endoskeletons unless the endoskeletons were taken as part of the Follow Me minigames? That's something I never actually considered at all, and it's a really good point. I think overall this video is a really good discussion going for MoltenMCI. There's a lot more that you didn't see. Of course, I made sure to cut it so that you can go and watch the full video yourself if you want to. As I said before, I think he's very good at explaining things in a way that makes it really easy for the average viewer to understand, and I really like the simplicity of Hyperdroid's edits. Something that I would highly suggest doing when theorizing is actually listening to and considering the other side of the argument as well. As I said at the end of my video, every theory has flaws, which is why it's just a theory. They can be considered as a baseline that can be improved on over time. Just like the whole history of MoltenMCI itself. Recently, we got a huge piece of evidence in Help Wanted which strengthened the theory and helped us to piece together a better crafted theory overall. So I do want to watch a video that goes against MoltenMCI, and that's Sire Squawk's video on why MoltenMCI is problematic. This guy is super underrated, by the way, I'll tell you that much. He makes videos on pretty obscure topics, but they're really fascinating to watch, and he has some really good points in a lot of them, I think.
I guess I'll first go into Candy Cadet because there's a handful of oddities with it. Primarily with the idea of 5 things becoming 1. These stories are about someone who is on the good side, taking 5 things, and in their efforts to save them or protect them, the good person is the one merging things, which becomes really weird in MoltenMCI, where the idea is that William is melting down the old animatronic parts and putting them into the Funtime animatronics, splitting them into 3. And that's also a step we're skipping here. The Funtime animatronics are completely ignored in the Candy Cadet retelling. In the Candy Cadet's version, it goes straight from 5 into 1, but that's not how MoltenMCI works.
I guess these are some good points, not necessarily against MoltenMCI itself, but more so against the usage of Candy Cadet as evidence for it. We already discussed that 5 going into 1 doesn't really fit as cleanly as it should, but also it is supposed to be a good person trying to give peace to 5 things, while we have William, the bad guy, combining 5 souls to split out into 5 robots. Candy Cadet's stories seem to be a huge stretch at this point, I think, but I do think that the last story about the orphans returning with a knock on the door is pretty convincing.
If you believe any variant of Golden Freddy having more than one spirit, we completely lose our count of 5 kids for this to work. It destroys the gravestone ending, it destroys Candy Cadet stories, it destroys our constant imagery of 5 kids being together. It really messes things up for MoltenMCI because MoltenMCI really is attached to this whole 5 becoming 1 thing.
That's also another good point I never considered. It's alright bringing Golden Freddy into this whole thing, but a popular theory is that he's possessed by both Cassidy and the Crying Child. That's probably why there's 2 lights shining from his eyes in the FNAF 3 ending. As soon as you try to merge these 2 theories, I do have to agree that the theory breaks down. Although, consider the fact that Golden Freddy is never actually destroyed in the Follow Me minigames, yet we still have 5 souls against Afton, the missing children, and then the 4 endoskeletons in the furnace. I think there's a possibility all of this could still work with 2 souls inside of Golden Freddy. The only thing that would need more of an explanation is what happens to the Crying Child once Cassidy is gone, or the other kid if you believe it's some other kid in there. Because that's a little bit more unsatisfying to me. now that I think about it, it's actually a lot more satisfying if Cassidy is a part of Molten Freddy, because we never see Golden Freddy get burned. Yet we do know that Cassidy has her happiest day. So it would kind of make sense, actually, if Cassidy was a part of Molten Freddy there instead of Golden Freddy. I'm pretty convinced that Cassidy can be a part of this. The only thing to consider is whether there's actually another soul involved in Golden Freddy. I think that's something that a lot of us have been assuming up to this point, and we don't really know what happens to Golden Freddy after Cassidy leaves.
The survival logbook is outright after the events of Sister Location. It has casual bongos, the cash basket, and exotic butters, and Cassidy and the bite victim are still waltzing around in that thing, which raises the question, is in MoltenMCI, is there just soul duplication? I know there's the whole soul splitting thing of, oh, there's the half that he didn't take away that's left in the original costumes, and then there's the metal half that was melted down, and all those kind of explanations. But at this point, we're having an entire sentient series of beings existing in the logbook, completely separate from the ones in Molten Freddy.
Once again, a very good point to bring up. We know not only does the survival logbook have to come after Sister Location, but also after FNAF 3, because a lot of the imagery within that book is FNAF 3 related. I'm thinking maybe all of this is less about soul splitting and soul duplication, but more so the effects of agony. It's kind of hard to believe their souls actually possess this book and write in it. So I think it's more implied that it's just the haunting effects of agony within the pizzerias from the children themselves. I doubt they're actually possessing the book. But then I think the crying child is, again, a key part of this, which makes it all just really difficult to justify. One day I do want to cover a theory involving the crying child called Shatter Victim, but that's just way too complex to talk about today.
From everyone's least favorite FNAF game, I guess, FNAF AR. You see, in FNAF AR, to my knowledge, these are still canon by the way, there's some unreleased emails that talk about various Fazbear facts from the past history. But there's one that's really weird. FNAF AR states that Rockstar, keyword Rockstar, not glam rock, Rockstar Bonnie was built from the original Bonnie. So let me paint an alternative to MoltenMCI with this logic. I think Henry gathered up all of the old remains from the original animatronics left behind from Follow Me and used them as a reference point or built around them or on top of them to create the Rockstar animatronic, preserving whatever they were in new bodies. I mean, this is literally what we see him do in the same game with the puppet. So it's not me pulling this out of nowhere.
Okay, yeah, so that line in FNAF AR, I know people are going to comment saying that it has questionable canonicity, and that's fine. Obviously it does. Let's just continue assuming that it's canon. I agree, it's such a strange line. It reminds me of that whole FNAF 2 teaser of something borrowed, something new. The wizard animatronics were possessed by the kids, and then their parts were used to build the FNAF 1 animatronics, carrying the kids with them. So now we hear that the Rockstars were probably built using the original animatronics. It's kind of scary. It's kind of scary knowing that part of the souls could have been carried with it, but I will be honest, at the moment I'm not convinced. I think MoltenMCI has a lot more going for it, but it is an intriguing line for sure. There are actually alternatives to MoltenMCI, but I think this is a scenario where there's a lot less information and therefore there's not much to say it's true and then there's not much to say that it's false. Which is why I think that mini theories that don't really go anywhere are more so just stories that people put together because they think it's fascinating, and that's okay, of course. Could the Rockstar animatronics, or any other animatronics for that matter, hold the souls of the missing children instead of the Fun Times and Molten Freddy? Honestly, it's hard to say. I think if there was more than just that one line in FNAF AR, I would be more convinced, but to be honest, there isn't really much more, so I can't say anything for certain. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this more kind of chilled back discussion on MoltenMCI. Once again, any more thoughts on these theories, you can let me know in the comments below. I probably won't talk about this topic again unless any new information comes out of it. So if you want my final thoughts on it, I think it's pretty convincing and probably what Scott was intending with the story. As I said in my last video, every theory has its own flaws, and whether that is something we are overlooking or something that Scott Cawthon is overlooking while making the story, that's completely okay. I just think that the story works better with this journey for the missing children. And as I said before, who else really fits possessing Molten Freddy, you know? Just a reminder to go and get yourself some G Fuel using the code OzoneYT for 20% off. I actually finished my entire bottle while making this video, so I need to go and make myself some more, but at least I feel great. I think something regarding MoltenMCI that people draw the line on is this whole soul splitting situation going on, which to me begs the question, how on earth do souls actually work in this universe? Like, is the ghost body attached to the molten metal? Could these spirits actually just be agony beings? And to what extent can a soul just walk around freely? All completely valid questions that we don't have many answers to, honestly. However, I think that a lot of the answers do come from the books, which is why sometime in the near future I want to do a whole video on souls and remnant and memories and agony and, you know, arcade machines and VR and AR and stuff like that. I really want to talk about 3 of the biggest stories in the series, in my opinion, coming home, under construction, and alone together. They have really similar themes, I think, and really help to point us in the right direction on these particular questions. So make sure you subscribe so that you won't miss that one when it comes out. Thank you so much for sticking to the very end of this video, and I will see you later. Goodbye.